Good morning, everyone. Thanks for attending today. I just make sure you can all hear me. Okay, that's good. Thanks for that. All right, well, let's make a start. Thanks for coming along and registering for this webinar. I will provide a copy of this PowerPoint presentation after the event, and you will have access to the recording. So let's make a start. My name's David Ashton. I'm Principal Consultant with Corporate Supremacy, and I've been a Business Station Advisor since 2014, providing advice and guidance on a range of matters. So that's sort of what I do. But in particular in relation to grant writing, I've sat on both sides of the fence, and that's sort of the experience that I'll bring, in the sense that I've submitted grants for clients for various funding, but I've also sat on selection panels to award grant applications. So I've seen a lot of good grant submissions and a lot of bad ones, so I'll sort of bring that practical experience to the fore. Business Station, that's just some information about them. I won't go into detail. As I said, I'll send this to you. There's the website there and the ASBAS program. So do take advantage of this service provided in Queensland, Northern Territory and WA. So regardless of where you're placed, the information that I'll provide will be of assistance to you, and I'll give you some information on where you can find information about grants and that. So let's sort of, if we look at, this is what we're going to discuss today. If you've got any questions, fire away, put them in the Q&A box. I may be getting to your answer though, but yeah, certainly ask any questions, and I will hang around at the end of the presentation and unmute the mics if you want to ask any pointed questions. So let's make a start. So why does government, and we're talking in particular government grants, I do make reference later on in other opportunities as well, but I'm talking about grants, and this applies to grants across the whole year, COVID specific grants, which have become available in Queensland, and also grants that may have a time frame, so they're released, during the year, but they have a closing date and time. So depending on the nature of the grant, it'll determine the strategy that you need to employ to be able to access that. So why does government provide grants? Well, they really want to solve a problem, and they're looking to business to help solve that problem. So, set up and run a business, but really it's these dot points here: achieve government, economic and social policy. So they want to see a thriving economy. So how do you do that? Well, you have, thriving businesses. Reducing unemployment. Well, those thriving businesses are employing people. Making communities stronger. Well, those businesses, yes, they're employing people in the local community, but they're also using suppliers and buying goods and services from those local suppliers. So, it all has that, roundabout effect. So how does government do this? Well, one of the things it does is provide grants and assistance to businesses to help them, grow and develop themselves. But in business doing that, they're helping government achieve those 3 points. So, and, the other thing is to carry out functions that government needs to make the economy function well. So, I mean, for example, Business Station is funded by the ASBAS program to deliver these advisory sessions. So it's either done by public servants through the government, or they outsource it to another organisation to manage. So that's why government provides grants and assistance. And we talk about grants, which is a cash component, but there's a lot of assistance available to businesses to help them as well. And these advisory sessions and webinars through Business Station are an example of assistance that you as a business owner can access. So what does government fund? Projects, because you're going to be seeking funding to do a certain thing. And that's, they're looking for projects or things that you're going to do that are going to affect or involve as many people as possible. Realistic projects that have strong backing from your market, your suppliers, your clients, and the like. Broad appeal, provide long-term solutions, in relation to those 3 points we discussed earlier. Something new or visionary that is being held back only because of a lack of funds. So they might step in and provide funding where funding can't be achieved from private investors or whatever. So, research and development and commercialisation grants and those sorts of things. Who is eligible for businesses? And, with every grant that's released, there is an eligibility criteria, and you need to meet that criteria in order to be able to access the grant. So, you've basically got to be a for-profit business. So have an ABN, you've got to operate in the state providing the grants. So, grants are provided by all 3 levels of government. So you've got to be based in that, so if it's a state government grant you're applying for, you need to be based in that state, and you need to spend the money in that state, or a percentage of that money in that state as well. So proof of concept, have the right to market the end product or service, already identified a customer channel, spend the amount in the state or area providing the grant. And more often than not, the grants are dollar for dollar type grants. So you need to have match funding. So it could be a grant up to, say, $20,000, but you need to, if you want to access the full $20,000, you need to put in $20,000 yourself. So that's an important consideration as well, whether you've got the financial backing yourself to be able to meet that dollar for dollar funding. So, as I said, we talk about grants and assistance. So the types of assistance that is available to business, grants, as I said, the cash component, mostly match funding, rebates and subsidies, incentives such as, tax offsets for research and development, the tax write-off for assets that has now been in place for a number of years, research, training, advisory and mentoring services like the ASBAS program. Yes, I've got a question here from Jeff. If a business is likely to benefit every state, how does one navigate WA state grants? I will get to that, but basically, if you're a WA-based business, then you need to apply through the various channels for grants that are advertised. But I will come to that question. So advisory and mentoring services like, as I said, the ASBAS program is an example of that, where you can access low or no cost advisory services and low interest loans. So that's the type of assistance. So we're not just talking about grants, but we're talking about all the other things that that government can provide you with. So where can we find grants? Well, depending on where you're based, grants are available from federal government, from state government, and from local government, and I'm going to touch on all those. So a good one to start with is this website here, and I'm just going to put it in the chat box. And I'm just going to run through an exercise with you. So I'm just going to stop sharing the PowerPoint presentation, and I'm going to share this website. So grants and program finder. So what we do here is it brings up a search panel that you can go and find some grants. So I'm going to plug in my postcode. So I'm in Perth. I'm going to look at the industry that I'm in. So I'm in a consulting business. So I'm going to say professional scientific. And what do I want to do? So I want to employ people. I want to get funding for skills and training. I want to improve or grow my business. Market. So I'm going to tick those things there. They're the 4 things that I want to do, and I'm looking to get funding and assistance for. And then what type of business am I? Well, I help other businesses. I'm a small business. So that's me. And then I go and click on search now. And it's brought up 45 grant opportunities that I may or may not be eligible for. And this is federal government grants. And because I put in my postcode 6101, that will give me state government grants in WA. So you can see there's 45 opportunities for grants and assistance. Really, the next stage for me is to go through each of these and identify the ones that are particularly relevant for me. And then, so for example, I might find this one is a good example. So I'll click on that. It'll bring up the page relating to it and all the details about what the grant offers. And importantly, the eligibility criteria. So I need to make sure that I meet that. And so there's an example of how you can so these ones here. So that's the point that you need to go through. So there's a website that you can go and find some grant opportunities, and that's a good start. So I've got another question. What are the priorities industries are? Is that just is that in relation to that entrepreneurs grant that I clicked on, or is that in relation to grants generally? You need to go to the actual. If you go down to the left-hand side, it's got there all the details of who is eligible and what you need to do. So it really depends on the type of grant. That's why you need to go into the details. So I'll come to your question. So that's the details there of how you can find grants. I'll stop sharing this screen and go back to the PowerPoint presentation. So yeah, so that's a good website to start with. You can plug in different parameters and it will bring up different results. So have a look at that. Grant Connect is dealing specifically with federal government grants. Self-Start, that's a website for businesses just starting out and a range of assistance and information to help you. Federal government coronavirus packages. Research and development tax incentives, venture capital, export development market grants. So if you're, export market development grants. So if you're looking to export overseas, get in contact with Austrade, and there's a whole range of support that they can give you. You can get funding for your marketing costs overseas. The landing pads, in some countries, they set up business incubators. You can get, I think it's something like 90 days of, free access to office space, so you can, just, start out in that country. But it's a very good agency for helping businesses get set up overseas. They run trade missions and like. I went in 2018 to Manila in the Philippines for the Asian Development Bank Business Opportunities Fair for consultants, and I was part of a delegation of organised by Austrade. There's about 30 of us from Australia, and that was quite good. They just laid it on for us in terms of support and assistance and coordinating meetings and attendance at the conference. And also we spent a whole day at the Australian Embassy, where Austrade had brought in guest speakers from the World Bank and AusAid and Austrade, USAID, on projects that consultants could possibly tender for. So it's quite a good thing from that was done. So yeah, so again, there's, as I said, it's grants and assistance. So in WA, have a look at that website. Queensland and Northern Territory, there's your grant portal. So it operates similar to that, grants and program finder that we went through earlier. So plug in your criteria and it'll bring up grants that are available for yourself. So there's some useful websites that you can go through, and then I'll go through the strategy behind that afterwards. The other thing too, don't forget your local government. They provide a range of assistance to business. I know in Queensland, the city, I think it's the City of Logan, is quite proactive in business development. So they, I'm in the town of Vic Park in Perth here. They put on networking events. Last year they had some COVID assistance grants available. I'm also involved with the City of Gosnells in Perth. They operate in conjunction with Business Station. They provide some business advisory and some networking events and newsletters, and also access to useful data about suburbs and markets in their area that you can tap into as well. So yeah, don't forget your local government. Get on the phone and have a chat to their economic development team, or look at their website and see what the council can do for you in relation to your business. And then also, contact your banks about any, support that they can provide, and also private company support for suppliers. I did some work with Crown Casino a couple of years ago on tenders, and they were running some workshops with their existing suppliers and prospective suppliers on how to bid for work with Crown. So there's an example of assistance that bigger companies could provide to their suppliers. So there's a good range of websites and information that you can access to find grants and assistance. And then the next part we'll go through is, that the strategy around that. One thing I say to people is, don't just, find a grant, download the application form and send it off. There needs to be a strategy around how you go about that. And, the first stage is to, review the requirements to determine your eligibility, really. I mean, as I said, we brought up 45 search results. Now, some of those, they look good, but are you eligible for it? And also, is it really the type of funding that's relevant to you? So that's why you need to research the grant, so understand the guidelines, the process requirements, have a look at the application form. There will be a requirement to sign a funding agreement. So look at the details of that. All those grants will have all that detail. When I clicked on that entrepreneurs one, you saw, that had all the details of the requirements. So look at the supporting information, terms and conditions, frequently asked questions. Determine what the funding body is looking to achieve. You know, as I said earlier, you know, government is looking to solve a problem. They need business to do it, so they provide funding, grants and assistance to do that. Look at what the funding body is trying to achieve, and look at what types of organisations the funding body is looking to fund, and do you meet that criteria? So if you're not sure, and I'd certainly do this, get on the phone, have a chat to that organisation. So if you're interested in that entrepreneurs program, get on the phone, have a chat to the people organising it, make sure you're eligible for it in terms of meeting the criteria, and then work with them to get your application done. They will assist you with that. They won't write your application, but they're there to give you advice and guidance in preparing your application, and get it to the point where there's some, in principle, support from them for you to actually submit your application. So if they say to you, no, you're not eligible, you've got no chance, there's no point going through the process. But, you know, at least get that sort of in principle support to say that you're eligible for it. Build a relationship with them, get them involved, seek their advice, guidance, and the like. So as I said, don't just apply for something cold. Do your legwork beforehand, you research, and you have that discussion with the funding body and get them to the point where, you know, hopefully the mere, you know, submission of your application will lead to a satisfactory result. And I think importantly, there's a number of types of grant processes. You've got, you know, that entrepreneurs program, that's available all year round. But then you're going to have some grants, like the COVID grants, for example, which are, you know, timed. You know, there's a closing date and time. So depending on the type of grant process is also going to determine your strategy as well. From your own point of view, are you grant ready? In the sense, are you going to meet the eligibility criteria? But do you have, you know, are you the type of organisation that they're looking to fund? You know, so what's your business strategy? How are you going to implement it? How will that, you know, the success of that strategy be measured? You know, what is that, the value of that grant to you? What is your other funding sources? Do you have a business plan? Because more often than not, they're going to want you to include a business plan as part of your application, because they're going to be looking at two things. One is the value of your proposal, or what you intend to do with that grant. But they're also going to look at your business. You know, how long have you been running? Your financial security, you know, your key personnel, you know, your quality management, you know, your organisational capacity to deliver the project that you're talking about. So you need to convince them of the merits of both, the merit of your project, but also the merits of your business. And that's where a business plan can be useful in that. And then once you've gone through that process of determining whether you're grant ready, you're eligible, you know, you understand the requirements of the, you know, the type of funding that they're looking to, or the type of project they're looking to fund, the type of organisation, then you need to then make that decision yourself as to whether you want to put in an application. So look at it from yourself, you know, the match funding, you know, do you have $20,000 to be able to match a $20,000 grant? Do you have the resources needed to deliver the project? Is the funding, the grant application consistent with your business strategy? So, you know, weigh up the risks and opportunities involved, because it might look like a good grant, but the requirements of the grant may present some risks to your organisation. So it's important to determine whether that's the right grant for you as well. And, you know, make that decision sooner rather than later, particularly in the case where it's a one-off type grant and there's a closing date and time. So once you've made that decision, you then need to go through the process of preparing your grant. allocate sufficient time. It's almost a project in itself. You're going to need to bring in a whole lot of information. You're going to need to develop a budget. You're going to need to do, if you haven't already, you're going to need to develop a business plan. You're going to need to complete the requirements of the application form. So you're going to need to, and if it's one of those grants that have a closing date and time, you've got a limited time frame in which to get it done. So that's what you need to be mindful of. So have all your information. I mean, I say, to people, if you're going to, because you can apply for multiple grants across all levels of government. So maybe set up a grants file that have all your, because most of the grants will ask similar types of questions. So set up a file of information that you're going to need for your grant. And then you're going to need to submit a budget. So, because they're going to want to know, if it's because most of the grants say up to a certain dollar limit, so up to $20,000. So, you may not need all 20,000, or you may not be able to commit your own funds up to that amount. So prepare a budget outlining, what you've got available, and then that will determine the amount of the grant that you need to apply for. So include that budget, and that would more often not form part of your business plan anyway. So in terms of writing your application, it's important. The whole point is building your case for funding support. I mean, there's limited funds. Why should the government give you and your project funding? So it's as much a marketing exercise. As I said earlier, you're trying to convince them of the merits of your project, but also the credibility of your business. So, what is your business? Establish credibility and qualifications for funding. Outline the long-term benefits of your project to your business, to the community in which you operate. So again, going back to those 3 dot points, you're going to be able to grow your business. Therefore, you may be able to bring on new employees. You're going to, support other local businesses through your purchase of goods and services. And then as a result, you might be able to provide traineeships or whatever. So you can see there how you're solving the problem that the government has. Awareness and understanding of your target group and your market, and produce evidence as well. So if you've got any research or information that can inform your application, then that's good. And demonstrate that your business can realistically address that issue. So that's where there might be some examples of where you've done similar work in the past, or whatever. You've got support from your suppliers, from your market, testimonials and the like. So market support. Tell the story. As I said, it's almost a marketing exercise. You're trying to convince me to give you funding. I mean, I do a lot of work in the tender space, and the whole idea is to convince someone to give you a job through tendering. It's the same principle with the grants, as you're trying to convince them to give you money. So your credibility as an organisation, and how you structure and write your document is important. So, and one of the things that you need to look at is this matching up. So I talked a bit earlier about the government solving a problem. They provide grants to organisations to assist in solving that problem. You need to demonstrate how your proposal will benefit the target group, say the market, how it will benefit the funding body, and how you can solve that funding body's problem. So provide evidence to support your application, show where it fits within the funding body's priorities. That's the key. That's that match up that we talk about. And then, you know, do your research on that. So, yeah, get on the phone, have a chat to that organisation that's providing, the government agency that's providing the funding, have a look at their websites, their annual reports, get an understanding as to what type of organisations they fund, you know, what type of projects they fund. I think if you continue down that entrepreneurs program, if you continue down, I think they've got some YouTube clips of examples of people that have received the funding. I've actually worked with organisations to obtain that funding as well. It used to be called Enterprise Connect. But, you know, so again, do your research on that funding before you submit your application. So look at the strategy around it, you know, what you're trying to achieve, how you're going to achieve it, the success of that, because you know, again, these are the questions that you're going to get in the application form, and you need to have an answer to that. So, as I said, I've based my presentation on my experience of working, you know, putting together grant applications, but also sitting on tender panel, grant panels as well, and saying, well, what are the sort of questions that you're likely to get in your application that you're going to have to answer? So, and this is basically the ones that you are. So, and as part of that, you know, and this goes for tenders as well, you know, your win themes, what's so good about your business? Because you are marketing your business, you are trying to persuade someone to give you funding. So it's all about portraying your business in a positive light, that you can deliver the project, you can manage the money that you're going to receive, and the like. So that's that, you know, business capacity. As I said, they're not just assessing your proposal, they're assessing your business as well. So you need to demonstrate your business capacity to deliver the project, but also be a responsible manager of the funding that's provided. Because it could be a grant that's funded over a period of time, you know, with different milestone payments or something. And then demonstrate how the expertise and skills and qualifications within your business can deliver as well. So that's an important element. So it's all about business capacity, you know, the value of the project, but your capacity as a business to deliver that as well. So in terms of presentation and structure, now, I mean, some of the grants may be in online form, you know, with check boxes and, you know, fields that you fill out. There might be word limits. So, and allowing you to attach various attachments to that. It could be a form that you need to download and fill out and provide, you know, a lot of detail. So again, the rules around the grant will, you know, outline what questions you need to answer and what information you need to provide. And again, there's, you know, two strategies. If it's a application with a closing date and time, then there's probably going to be a panel of people that are going through the applications and assessing them and, you know, making determinations. So, you know, they're not just going to be reading your submission, they're going to be reading everyone else's as well. So the ones that stand out are, you know, well-structured, answer all the questions, provide good evidence, you know, meet the rules of the grant application process, and, you know, the key messages are articulated well for you to convince me to give you the grant funding. So that's important. And likewise, you know, you can still probably ring up someone. There'll be a contact person if you're not sure of anything, but don't leave the selection panel guessing as to what your answer is. So if something's not applicable to you, you know, write in there not applicable. Don't leave us guessing as to what the answer is. So depending on the type of application, you know, and it's important in terms of your business plan, how you structure that, you know, make it easy for us to read and find the information that we need. And if you can break that up with tables and graphs and charts and things to, you know, to demonstrate your capability, but also demonstrate the value of the proposal, then that's a lot better than just page after page of text. So, yeah, answer all the questions. That's important. Don't leave us guessing. And I mean, some of those questions could be, you know, have a word limit or a character limit. So you may have to be very succinct in your response to be able to answer it within that word limit. And make it engaging enough for the assessor to want to read it in full. That's important. And then, you know, in terms of finalising, you know, proofread and edit, you know, it goes without saying, you know, have you built the case for funding support? That's the key. Is there a valid case for the government to give you funding? That's what they're looking for. Package and deliver, so as per the requirements of the grant process. As I said, some of those grants are available all year round. Others are available for a short period of time and have a closing date and time. Always seek feedback on your application as well, because you can apply for other grants in the future. And, you know, how you manage a grant that you receive will also determine whether you're able to apply for grants. I mean, if you don't, you know, these aren't loans, so you don't have to pay it back. So it will form part of your income. But, you know, if you can't acquit the funding, or you don't use it properly, or you don't deliver what you say you're going to deliver, you may have to pay it back. So that's an important element to consider. So, and if you're going to apply for future funding, again, you know, look at your application. You know, why were you unsuccessful? You know, look to improve upon the next opportunity. So that's pretty much the grant process. I've given you some you know, websites to look at. I'm just, the next couple of slides, I'm just going to touch on in that, and I do this with tenders as well. This is you know, demonstrating organisational capacity, because this is a key element of it. And you're going to get procedure questions on how you actually manage your business, because they want to be satisfied that, you know, you're a safe pair of hands, really, as a business. They don't want to give you all this funding and find that you're financially insecure and you're going to go broke and all this sort of stuff. You know, so that how you manage your business, how you manage, you know, the funding process, and how you manage the funds are all critical elements of demonstrating whether you're the type of organisation they want to give funding for. So, you know, look at your quality management. What's the process that you're going to go through to deliver the project? You know, and it really depends on the type of grant and the type of organisation you are and the type of project. But, you know, there might be environmental management issues to consider. You know, if you're looking for sustainability grants and, you know, energy grants and those sort of things, these are the, you know, types of things. You know, your environmental management approach, you know, safety management, information security is becoming increasingly important. Governance, critical. Again, that's the whole basis of how you run your organisation. Fraud and corruption control. Are you going to protect the funding that they're going to give you? Your corporate social responsibility. Again, getting back to that, building stronger communities. How is your business? And they're probably going to ask you questions on how you do that now. What's your corporate social responsibility now? You say you're going to do something to get this funding, but what's your evidence of doing the same thing now? Do you already have a corporate social, a good corporate citizen? So, your governance arrangement's going to be important. Risk management. What's, in your business plan, you might do a risk management assessment of the project. What's your mitigation strategies for those risks? What's your business continuity? If you receive this funding and something, like a COVID comes up and bites us all on the backside, what's our business continuity requirements so that arrangements so we can continue to deliver the project? Does that have an implication for the funding that you've received? So again, you need to have some responses to those types of questions. So these slides, what I'm saying is, and same with tenures, these are the types of questions that are going to be asked in a grant application. HR management, financial policies and procedures. How are you going to manage the funding that you receive? So that's my presentation. Just in conclusion, what I'd take away from this is work through those websites that I've given you and identify grant opportunities. Process of elimination, really, if you're not eligible for it, move on to the next one. Contact your local government, because there is some support that they can provide you, depending on also how advanced they are, but most councils do a lot with their local business community now. Review your current status to determine whether you're grant ready. Where you've identified a grant, start and build that relationship with the funding body. Have that discussion with them early in the process. Treat the whole grant application process as a project and manage your people and resources accordingly. And importantly, build that case for funding support, so the match up. That funding body has identified a problem, outline how you can solve that problem for it. Presentation and structure is important. Look at your organisation and, what's so special about you. What is your capacity to deliver the project? Look at your submission before it's completed. And as I said, the strategy between the timed application with a closing date and time and one that's available all year round is different. So obviously, if there's a closing date and time, deliver it by that due date and time. So that's where we are. I'll stay on the line if you've got any other questions. I'll open up the mics. But the main purpose of this presentation is to give you, the websites and information on where you can find grants, and then really get you starting to think about the strategy of applying for a grant and get you thinking about how you actually run your organisation and what you need to do to get yourself in a position to be able to successfully obtain that grant as well. So, so thanks for attending today. That's my contact details if you want to have a chat or a discussion about a particular grant that you're looking at. I'm based in Perth, so we can do it by phone or Zoom or in person, and go from there. So I hope I've answered the questions that were put, but I will open up the mics. if you have any particular questions, and I'll hang around for a while.